Greetings to you from the Christian Church of God, from Jerusalem, and our Global Council from Christ. I'm Michael Hoshaya with you today, and we're going to continue in this series of unclean foods with part 2. But before I do, you might want to stop and go watch the first part video and see where the question was proposed to those who condemn others for eating pork. They were asked the question, why was it that Noah was allowed to eat foods that they later could not? So with that being said, I would also like to give a disclaimer. I do not teach against adhering to the dietary laws under Moses. I don't. But my problem comes in when you start to condemn me or my brothers and sisters for following what our Messiah said. And he said, and I quote, "There is nothing outside of man that entering the mouth can defile him." You can sit here and say that had everything to do with washing hands and germs, but it's not. You have to listen to the first part. There is nothing outside of man that entering his mouth can defile him. Period. With. End of discussion. That's all there is. So when you condemn me or my brothers and sisters, I'm going to come at you and I'm going to shake the foundations of your belief system. We're going to go straight to the root core and we're going to find out exactly what it is that you know about your doctrine. With that being said, today we're going to discover exactly what unclean is and whether it only pertains to foods or not. Let's start off with Leviticus chapter 11, verse 7. "And the swine, though he divide the hoof, and be cloven-footed, yet he cheweth not the cud, he is unclean to you." Well, let's define that word unclean. From Hebrew 29:30, foul in a religious sense. Now I'm going to need you to remember that whole sentence right there. Foul in a religious sense, because it's going to come into play. But let's look at the usages. Unclean, defiled, infamous, polluted, pollution. I do recall some people of Israel being polluted, or at least called polluted by Yahweh, but that's another study. Let's not worry about that. Let's go back and look at that Hebrew 29:30. So let's go over to our concordance right here. We're going to punch in the number 29:30. I'm going to bring it up, see what it says. It says, "A primitive root to be foul, especially in a ceremonial or moral sense, contaminated." And the usages are unclean, defile, pollute, uncleanness, utterly. So here we see a second time for a ceremonial sense or a moral sense that unclean comes in. But I really need you to pay attention to that word uncleanness right there. We'll come back and visit that in just a moment. So without further ado, I would propose the question to those who follow the dietary laws and condemn others for eating unclean. Why is it that you do not teach the unclean doctrine to its fullest extent? We're going to answer that. There's a usage here in Leviticus chapter 21. We're going to go to 23. We're going to see what it says. "Only he shall not go in into the veil, nor come nigh unto the altar, because he hath a blemish, that he profane not my sanctuaries, for I, the Lord, do sanctify them." Well, who is he talking about? There's only certain people who could approach that temple or that altar. But it tells us up here in verse 21. Now, I'm going to, you know what, let me go ahead and take the Strongs off right here. I want you to see this very clearly. "No man that hath a blemish of the seed of Aaron the priest." Stop. Wait a minute. Hold the phone. Right there. Stop. The Levites were set apart from all the other tribes because they were going to be the priests. You could not be a priest to intercede between man and God unless you were a Levite. And here God is telling Moses, no man that hath a blemish of the seed of Aaron the priest shall come nigh to offer the offerings of the Lord made by fire. He hath a blemish. Stop. Now, we see that if the priest had any deformity whatsoever, he could not go near the altar. It goes on to say that he could eat the bread from the most holy and the holy in verse 22, but he could not go near the altar, and he could not go near the sanctuary, because only he shall not go in unto the veil, nor come nigh unto the altar, because he hath a blemish. Why am I focusing on this word blemish? Now remember, I said that we were going to get into this whole full extent of unclean. But that word blemish is about to come up, and it's going to wrap around all the way back to 29:30 that we just looked at in that word uncleanness. Here we go. Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 24, verse 1. When a man has taken a wife and married her, and it come to pass that she find no favor in his eyes, because he hath found some uncleanness in her, then let him write her a bill of divorcement and give it to her hand and send her out of his house. So let's look at this again. If he finds some uncleanness, now you remember that word I told you to remember? Uncleanness from 29:30, from the word unclean. Here it is, uncleanness. But you know what? I really need you to see this. This is crazy. Let's go ahead and find that word uncleanness and define it. And there it is. From 6168. Nudity, literally and especially the pudenda, that has to do with her sexual organs. Or figuratively, disgrace, blemish. So there's that word blemish. And it was related to the word uncleanness, which was one of the usages for under our definition of unclean, Hebrew 29:30. Let's go ahead and look at that again. First of all, there it is, the unclean. See it? Unclean. Very good. And then here it is, blemish, right there. Very good. And it was by the word uncleanness right there. Okay? So let's go back to our concordance with our number 29:30. What did it say? Especially in a ceremonial or moral sense, contaminated. And there's our word right there. Uncleanness. Isn't that interesting? But you want to see something that's even worse? This whole doctrine of uncleanness is because this man found no favor. Let's define favor. Graciousness. He found no graciousness in her, in his eyes. That is, subjectively, kindness. He found no kindness in his eyes for her. He found no favor for her in his eyes. Or objectively, beauty. Beauty. There was a blemish in her beauty, and he could put her away for uncleanness. Now, those who adhere to the dietary laws, who love to condemn people for eating unclean, I again pose the question to you. Why do you not teach it to its fullest extent? Could it be that maybe you have a family member or you yourself have a blemish and you are considered unclean? That's what happened to the Levite priest. If he had a blemish, he couldn't go anywhere near the altar. So either A, you don't want to teach the doctrine of unclean to its fullest because you may have to put away a family member or someone you love, or B, you don't know what you're talking about. So again, I ask you the question, why don't you teach the doctrine of unclean to its fullest extent? Have a good day.